You're listening to Pop Culture Clash, and I'm about to challenge Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR, and I am with a very special guest today, Dr. Robert of the Blow Monkeys. Hi, Dr. Robert, how are you?
Hello, JR. I'm very well, thank you.
Good, good. Right, I'm trying out a new format today, and there's going to be a standardized version of this format. But because you and I are here doing this, I've come up with a version of this format that is going to be specific to you. So what I've got is, well, I've got about 10 or 12 questions. We probably won't get through all of them. We'll see how many we get through. I'm just going to issue with a series of challenges, and you just have to tell me which is your which is your preference in each of the cases. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you have a preference. Obviously, the thing is, I'm just putting these challenges in front of you in order to give you a series of things to talk about. So, in order to get us off to a start, and so that you can sort of get an understanding for what the challenges are going to be, here's the first challenge. Challenge number 1 is writing or performing, or indeed recording. So, which is your preference?
Well, there's no set answer to that because it changes all the time.
Yeah,
I love the writing process because that's really there's I think a lot of writers will tell you there's a point when something comes together and you think, yeah, I'm onto something, and then that's so something new is born, But I suppose out of it all, it's the performing that really is the hook, because you're doing both. You're playing things to people. You can see the whites of their eyes. You can find out whether a song works or not. And really, that's what it's all about. That's what being a musician for me is about. It's about creating the right atmosphere. It's not even about the guy on stage or the band on stage or the woman or whoever it is. It's just about making connections, a kind of community temporarily united by kind of music. And sometimes you can just, you act as the kind of lightning rod for that, as the conductor. But that's all, and that's my job.
Do you ever have gigs where you find that the conducting just isn't working and you just have to sort of plow through to the end? Or do you find that you're so well sort of rehearsed in it and you've been doing it for so long that you kind of just know how to do it?
Well, when I started out, I had plenty of those gigs. In fact, the majority of them were like that. And then, because, I didn't have the material, the experience to sort of, to subsume myself into the song, but as I went along and as we carried on playing and as I got more experienced, I found that there was a place I could go. So I have to be able to believe in the song. I found out that the lyrics were really important to me because I needed to connect with something in the song that made it real for me. I'm not saying every time I sing Dig in Your Scene, I'm taken back to the initial time when I played it or wrote it. I'm not, because that would be a lie. But I am in the song. I'm not just doing showbiz. And some people can do that, and I'm not against that. But that's not really. I'm not good at that. So I have to find somewhere that's something I can believe in the song, and then it really and if I'm not getting a reaction, well, it doesn't matter because I know that what I'm doing is coming from the right place.
Yeah, that it's working for you.
But hopefully, you want a reaction because you want to then take it to another place if you can.
Sure, absolutely.
I was reading that book, Springsteen's, but I'm not a massive Springsteen fan, but I do admire him. And I'm not a big fan of like bombastic Bruce. I like The Ghost of Tom Joad, Nebraska, that kind of Springsteen. And but he talks about it, he does 4.5-hour shows, and yeah. In a sense, what he does is an act. It's as much an act as Liberace. His act is the blue collar worker, singing, giving it for real, but in actual fact, all these road trips and things that he sings about, he lives, right next door to where he was born. He's not that guy. This is a kind of invention to a degree.
Yeah, sure.
So, so I guess the idea of authenticity Um, it's an interesting conundrum. I don't necessarily think it's as simple as that anymore.
I think for me, if I see somebody, it just has to feel organic, like they're doing it from a place that's natural to them. And I even would include a certain amount of artifice in that. But do you know what I mean? I need to feel that like they're not just doing it because they feel that they have to do it. I feel like they're doing it because it's part of who they are. And I certainly got that with you.
There's a craft in that as well. There are people that are showmen, and it's about that. And I understand they've got to hit the same spot every night. There's dance routines, there's clothes changes, there's all that kind of world, and I respect people that do that, But I've also seen, I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen bands, contemporaries of mine, where they are just definitely going through the motions. They're not feeling anything. They're not connected with the songs anymore. And fair play. So you're there to pick up some, the check, I guess. I don't know, but it kind of kills something inside. I love music too much to want it to do that to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Look, we'd better move along, otherwise we're not actually going to get any further than the first challenge. So here we go. I'm going to issue challenge number 2, and this is challenge number 2. T-Rex or laughing clowns?
Oh. T-Rex, because I think there's something about the age you're at when your eyes are first opened to the glory and the magic of what music can do, and that transformative experience. Something about that happening for the first time that stays with you. There's a quote on Scott Walker 4. I think it's Scott 4 from Albert Camus, which is much puts it much better than I did just done. But that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying there, because they're both very special to me. But I guess it's because that's the thing that first opened my eyes.
Yeah. Whereas Laughing Clowns, I think you sort of cite as the band that sort of turned you into a musician to a degree.
Well, I was in Australia, and I'd gone there, and I'd seen the Saints actually, but I went to see the Laughing Clowns, and I was already playing by then. I was sort of busking, 16, right. 17-year-old busking. But when I saw them, and there weren't many, but they weren't very big. They weren't very popular. Just something about the mixture that captivated me. It was the guitar playing of Ed Cooper, he was still playing that kind of Saints kind of power thing. But then they had a jazz drummer, bebop sort of influenced, and then they had a sort of slightly out of tune brass section.
Yeah.
Like Fela Kuti. And I know it's a particular thing to me because a lot of people don't get it, but they were the greatest band I ever saw live. They were unbelievable. And that mixture of things that they were doing appealed to me greatly. And I thought, God, that's a post-punk avenue that's opening up to something that I really love.
Sure.
That I think I could do. Of course, we never got near it. That was the intention when I came back to London, and no one had heard of the Laughing Clowns. So I played those records endlessly to Neville in the band and all that, who got into it. They got into it. But you couldn't replicate that because there was something magic about that, especially the drummer. It was the drummer that gave them, Jeffrey, that gave this kind of bebop thing that was not rock. It was much more interesting than rock. And that totally captivated me. So I saw them at the Africa Centre, and I saw them at the Rock Garden in Covent Garden when they came over. And there must have been 5 people there. And I was dancing the whole gig on my own in a sort of reverie. I think Ed probably remembers that. But yeah, so they were very important to me.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, actually, confession, I think it was the drums that not first got me into the Blow Monkeys, but it was Neville Henry. He's an amazing drummer. It was his drums at the start of He's Shedding Skin that really made me sit up and take notice when I first put that record on. So that's in your favour too.
Neville would be thrilled with that because Neville's never played drums in his life. He plays sax. But
oh God, there's me doing the names again. I keep doing this. It's middle age, you know. Tony Kiley.
You're talking about Tony Kiley.
Yes, of course I am.
When Tony joined the band, we went up a level because we had initially a guy called Angus Hines who we'd met when we started out before we got signed. And well, the joke with Angus was that he was too good looking, so he had to go. But actually, we needed a drummer that could play and jazz. And Tony had come from the Welsh. He was a protege, really, Welsh youth jazz orchestra. And he was a pro. He was a real pro, and he upped our game. So by the time we got a record deal and we started making records and we started playing properly and touring, we had a real drummer all of a sudden. Somebody who could really do it. So he made a massive difference to us. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Right. Challenge number 3. Digging your scene, or it doesn't have to be this way.
Digging your scene.
Yeah, sure.
Because
go on.
Yeah, first hit changed everything for us. I remember writing it in a little. I'd split up with my first wife at this point, so I'm living alone in a little flat in Clapham, and I'd bought one of those Drummatics machines, they were called. And a bass machine that later became very popular during the acid house thing because I sold them for shitloads of money later on. But this little drum thing, and I tried to do something. I remember thinking Sexual Healing Marvin Gaye was out around that time I was writing it, or just before, and this whole soul thing, and so I tried to do a little demo with that. So I got the little demo somewhere, and but I knew there was something in it, but that was the song that changed everything for us because it became. I was useless at picking singles. I didn't know it was going to be a hit, but it became such a big hit for us. It only got to number 12 in England, but it's perceived as bigger than that. And but it was one of those worldwide things. It went everywhere. Yeah. So suddenly we were in America doing Dick Clark's American Bandstand. That kind of iconic. And it was number 1, I think, in New Zealand or something. I don't know. And it was in Australia, and it was a worldwide thing. So it changed everything for us. So that, as I say, it was, as the showbiz saying is, it's been very lucky for us.
Right. Challenge number 4. This one should be just as easy as that one. Possibly. Challenge number 4 is this: the UK or Spain.
Well, you see, either ors are quite difficult, aren't they?
Yeah. The idea is not necessarily that you choose, but
in general, it's hard to say, man. I love the UK. I was born in Scotland, and as you can tell, I left very early because of my accent. But I've sort of always felt myself to be Scottish because I was brought up that way with my mum. Made sure that I support. My dad was a Londoner, but my mum and my brothers and sisters all born in Edinburgh. So I supported Scotland versus England always in the football and things like that. And I spent my summers up in Edinburgh with my grandmother. So culturally, and in my heart, I feel that I'm Scottish. So, but it's just too cold and dark. I couldn't live there, that's the truth. And when I lived in Australia, I think I got soft. I got enamored with the lifestyle, with the sunshine. And my wife is from a different background, but has also been through lots of changes in kind of climates and countries that she's lived in. And so I love them both. I'm very angry, actually, about the way things have gone, especially in England. I think people had the wool pulled over their eyes and lied to a degree that I could not believe. If you'd have said this to me 20 years ago when I left, I wouldn't have believed it, what's happened. When we live in a world where Nadine Dorris is culture secretary and Priti Patel is, doing her thing. And Liz
it just seems insane to me. Yeah.
It's just insanity. And then this kind of, these people laughing at you and these kind of Eton boys. And yet, there is a chance they could win again. So I don't know, maybe England, maybe knee-jerk. When I lived in England, out of London, it scared the shit out of me when I went to live in the home counties because that's where you suddenly met the people that are voting these people in right now. And I don't mean to be disparaging, but that really scared the shit out of me. So I needed to get my kids out of there, give them another culture, another language. I love Spain because Spain, where I live down here in Andalusia, is on the tip of North Africa. So there's a lot of influence from Morocco and Algiers and Tunisia. So that, you know, the Moors were here for, you know, a few hundred years ago. So there's, you know, I just think that's a healthy thing. I know my kids are both back in London now, but I know that they've got an eye on leaving again and coming back to Spain because they've seen that. So that's all you can hope to do is open their eyes. So my answer to your question, in short, is both.
Right, we are going to run out of time, so I'll do two more. Here's one for which there's going to be a short answer. The Blow Monkeys, the band, or Dr. Robert, the solo artist? In other words, do you do the solo stuff because you feel the need to do something apart from the band? Or do you do it just because you've got so much stuff, the band can't possibly keep up with you?
Both those things, really. I mean, first of all, when the band stopped in 1990, obviously what am I going to do, you know? I went through a very big change there, put the acoustic guitar in the back of the car, and off I went. I also did an awful lot of listening. I felt that at the end of the Blow Monkeys, I needed to somehow re-educate myself. I had sort of been winging it. I felt like, although, you know, we've been successful and we've done lots of albums, I felt like I was missing a kind of fundamental grounding in things. Because really, when I started off writing songs, I had no blueprint. I was just kind of making it up. And I suppose that's what gives things like Limping for a Generation its own unique sound and weird kind of song structures going on in there and all sorts of things, because I didn't really know what I was doing. When the band ended, I really went into a kind of deep archaeological dig through the whole of the Greenwich Village scene, that kind of Harry Smith folk anthology, right back to the roots of folk music, of blues, of, you know, as far back as you can go, just trying to just listen to enjoy. And that started to come out in my solo stuff, first album, Realms of Gold. So I really enjoyed that period of the freedom and just being able to go where I wanted. I also like the fact with acoustic gigs, I could just sit down and I wouldn't have a set list. I could just kind of do an open tune and make it up. And I love that. I need that side because the Blow Monkeys, by definition, is going to be more formula. It's going to have a certain structure. There are certain songs we're going to have to play, and I enjoy doing those, but blah, blah, blah. You know, there's something in both things I really love. I love the discipline and the kind of energy of playing with the band. And I love the freedom of just, you know, so I've done, you know, I've got a solo, well, it's not a solo album, actually. I've recorded an album with Matt Dayton, which is going to come out. I think it's not coming out until early next year because he's got his own album to do, man, as they do. But it is coming. And that was real fun. We went up to our Anglesey and recorded for 5 days, just sitting there opposite each other, playing. And, you know, I love doing that. Because I love improvisation, and we don't really do that in the band, and that's not what people come along to see with the Blow Monkeys. Let's go and see them improvise. It's not what you're gonna. So you know, there was this. It kind of keeps me happy. Otherwise, I might get a little bit frustrated with that as a musician.
Yeah, sure. It's a bit like when we do films on the podcast. People expect to hear us talking about Doctor Who. But if we just talked about one thing all the time, we'd go insane. So we do films and music as well to keep ourselves sane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to keep that flame alive about the bit that you enjoy doing.
Exactly so.
You know, the initial thing. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to give you one last one, and this one's going to be so far out of left field, you probably will, but you might not actually recognise what I'm talking about. But here you go. Your final challenge for today is this. Paris Match or Ivy? Now, do you know what I'm talking about, first of all?
Digging Your Scene.
Yeah, they've both done cover versions of it.
They're both cover versions. Ivy did Digging. Paris Match did...
Digging Your Scene. They also did Digging Your Scene on an album in 2007.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah. Ivy.
You reckon? Yeah.
Yes.
Ivy's the slightly more experimentally stylized version of it, whereas the Paris Match version it's a bit like, it's a very much a sort of soft jazz version, very standardized version of it.
Yeah, there's another one as well. There was a soul singer.
Oh, really? Oh, I missed out that one, I think.
Somebody. I'll find it. Yeah, but I think we could do with a few more covers. That would be good. Yeah, you know, take it somewhere else, you know.
Well, Dr. Robert, this has been an absolute pleasure. There is another reason why we've done this, though. So I'm going to talk about this for a minute here, because hopefully to direct people towards you. But you've just recently joined the ranks of people who have a Patreon account.
Yeah.
And so we are, and this was my suggestion, we are going to go on and record an episode of Desert Planet Picks, which is a podcast I occasionally do, where I asked people, it's a bit like what it sounds like, really. It's a bit like Desert Island Discs, except instead of 8 records, I asked them to choose 8 different items, a film, a book, a meal, a person, to take with them to a desert planet. And you and I are going to record an episode of that, and that is going to go into your Patreon account. So would you like to say a few words about your Patreon account to get people to come along and watch or listen to that there?
Well, I've only just started it. I thought it was a good idea because I looked at a couple of friends who had started them, and it looks like a great opportunity to have that connection with your fans. I mean, the whole way it's gone for me over the last years is towards independence. So, you know, and setting up Bandcamp, putting through my social media. I don't want to spend all day on the internet, but this is what I do, you know, and I'm getting it into a kind of place where, and this Patreon is exciting because I've got so many unreleased, you know, tunes, because I do write a lot and I have written a lot in the past. I've got lots of ideas I love doing cover versions of other songs or just recording songs and all that. And then somebody suggested to me, why don't you do one of these, you know, guitar lessons, show people how you write your songs, you know. And I kind of, at first I'm like, oh, I don't want to give it all away, you know. But then I really don't know what I'm doing anyway. So why not share it, you know? And so that's another tier, that's another level you can join. You get a kind of guitar lesson. So, but you know, it's early days, and I want it to evolve, and I'm up for changing it and putting in new ideas, and making it work, and building some sort of community there where I can kind of express myself.
Well, that's again one of the reasons why I suggested doing a podcast for it, because I think one of the things people like to do is sit down and either watch or listen to you just chatting, really. And
well,
so,
I mean, I don't know why they'd want to do that, you know, because you know. I don't necessarily have very interesting to say. It's just music, but I get that because I'm also interested. I mean, I'm a spotter. You know, if there's an interview with, you know, Bob Dylan, I'll watch it because I'm just fascinated by the thought process. Doesn't matter what he's talking about, you know.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so you know, I get that, and it, like I said, it's very early days, but it feels like something that could grow into something quite fun. And that's it, you know, fun and creative.
Well, I'm there. I'm one of your patrons, and I couldn't be happier about it, quite frankly. Dr. Robert, thank you so very much for doing this, and I'll see you on the other side of Desert Planet Picks.
I'll see you there.